guys, this feels like it's like 2 years back. I actually can't remember when all the David Dobrik stuff happened, but it feels like we're coming back to that now because there's a lot of new information coming out. So let's just get into all of that. Subscribe, hit the bell, like, comment for engagement, and let's just get into it. So we have two separate pieces of drama to do with David Dobrik, and actually none of it's coming from David Dobrik himself, so that's pretty interesting. David obviously isn't posting on YouTube anymore. He kind of came back and then left. Now he's doing Snapchat because that's an easy way to make money. Apparently Snapchat's paying bank, and no one cares if you're a danger to society. Everyone's just like, yeah, we'll just like tap through the, and then you just get paid, right? So he's obviously doing his own thing on Snapchat. Jeff still has JeffFM with Tana Mojo. She comes on every now and then. It's not like with her officially, but she comes on a lot of the time. And then obviously Tana has cancelled, and then Trish has JustTrish. I know I'm setting all of this up. It's because these podcasts have now, worlds have collided. Obviously Trish went on cancelled, Tana Mojo went on JustTrish, and they talked about a bunch of stuff. And Tana did say that she wanted Trish and Jeff to become friends because Tana's good friends with Jeff and Tana's good friends with Trish, so she wanted to like worlds collide it, right? So most anticipated, Jeff and Tana go on the JustTrish podcast, and a lot has been said. Essentially, he mentioned how much, well, they start talking about this whole situation, and I know there was a bit of disagreement between them because apparently Trish saw Jeff in a Starbucks and he ran away from her when this whole David situation, like before all of that broke. Like when he was still friends with David, essentially. He claimed that wasn't true. That I don't know if you guys remember when David was getting exposed, Jeff was also getting exposed, and then Trish accidentally exposed the whole excavator thing. Like that hadn't come out before Trish had mentioned Ohio and like what happened in Ohio. So then he came out with his story. He went on the Frenemies podcast to talk to Trish and Ethan. They grilled him about the whole thing, and that's pretty much when his mind was changed about David. I think that was really the moment where he was like, oh, something's not adding up. Like I don't think my friends are my friends. Obviously Frenemies has dissolved since then. So now Jeff came on the JustTrish podcast, and they're discussing a bunch of things like, why he had the opinions that he had about Trish, why he was running away from her in the Starbucks.
You spoke so nicely of me, and you always really have. Mm-hmm. Maybe there were some times, there in the beginning that things got a little ugly, but we were on opposite sides,
Yes.
So all is fair in love and war,
But that's, okay, we're going to talk about it, but that's what always kind of got me is because I never considered us opposites because we barely knew each other. Mm-hmm. You came in right at the ending of my little time there. So I was kind of shook that, you did not like me so much. I was kind of like, okay, I get it. I'm not in the group anymore, but I was, kind of shook by it all.
Yeah.
He drank the Kool-Aid.
You just spoke the truth. You had something that you knew that was a big secret that I was keeping from everybody. And not like I was paid off to keep it a secret. I just wanted to keep it a secret because I was embarrassed. But that story needed to come out. And if not, I'd be in such a worse spot now. Even, this guy made his episode where he blamed this shit on me and I saw his true colors, and that happened right at the end of the statute of limitations to even do anything, to take action and to get rightfully, we're fighting it out in court right now, but to get that, I needed that, and that was because of you. You opened my eyes, or I.
She actually ended up in a mental hospital after she left David Dobrik's squad, and they actually sent her to hospital because they were calling her crazy, and I think she felt crazy at the time. Probably she felt like she was losing her mind because they were making her feel like she was losing her. They were making her lose her mind. They were gaslighting her, manipulating her. The whole Jason, Trish, Tana situation where he desperately wanted to hook up with Tana while being with Trish. I don't think that was right. I don't think any of it was right. I think she was definitely pushed to the limits, gaslighted, the whole thing. I think she was really going through at the time, but Jeff didn't see that, so when he came in, he just saw a crazy woman, and they were all like, yeah, she's crazy, don't listen to her. And I think he really believed that for a bit, and now he's looking back on it and thinking oh, they made me feel crazy as well. Now I know how Trish felt in that moment, to be pushed so far to the limits. And I think that's something you can really bond over, and they really did during this podcast bond over how they've been treated by the whole group, so obviously that sucks. They also go over the fact that Tana was friends with David for a bit and friends with the whole vlog squad, and then she ended up noticing a few patterns of behavior that weren't great. She would go on JeffFM and call out people, and then she would go to these events and defend Jeff and the whole thing, right? So we remember on the JeffFM podcast, Tana was talking about how she was shouted at by one of the members of the vlog squad because he didn't like that she was talking about him on the JeffFM podcast, because if we go back to Daddy David, he'd be in big trouble because he was basically saying how much he still wants to be friends with Jeff, but he can't because of David. It was this whole thing. So it's just showing this toxic pattern of I'm trying to get to a point here. It's toxic pattern of behavior. So that's when Tana pretty much cut off the whole vlog squad and David, and she just stuck with Jeff, right? So now we're in this square one situation where Jeff is also mentioning how he had to cut off a bunch of people, or a bunch of people cut him off because David isn't allowing them to be friends with Jeff. So it's not enough that David's not friends with Jeff, all of David's friends have to also not be friends with Jeff.
I didn't want to have to cut everyone off, but he made it like that.
Yeah.
Like I had a barbershop episode planned with Oliver Tree, and he wanted Nick there. He wanted Jonah to be there for the episode. So I was like, it shouldn't be an issue. Like this was after TMZ put it out that, now we're fighting it out in court. And Jonah was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I'll be there. Cool. And then I get a call back an hour later, and he's like, nah, Dave said I can't do it. And I was just like really hurt by that because I love that kid. I love his family. I really looked at him as a real friend. Like he moved into my old apartment. We lived next door to each other. We would cook food together. If I was going through something, he'd bake me cookies. We had a real friendship. And to hear that, I was like, okay, that's how this game is. I just got to learn to take my emotions out of this and just find real people to hang out with.
So he talked about, for example, how much he really liked Jonah. And Jonah said that he would show up for one of Jeff's videos because Jeff was filming something. And then pretty much a few hours later, he messages and says, oh, sorry, I can't show up. David said I'm not allowed. And it's like, that is mind-blowing to me that David just says, no, you're not allowed. And this grown man is like, no, I'm not allowed, actually. And I have more tea about Jonah at the end of this, so I'm going to get into that in a minute. He did say that he can't say too much about the actual accident. Obviously, they were getting into the excavator. That's a big part of the whole thing. But he can't get into it because he is actively suing David. And apparently David keeps on trying to throw it out in court. So trying to get the case thrown out. And so he's very much elongating the whole thing. But Jeff says he wants to go the whole way. He wants to go to trial because he wants to prove that he is innocent and that David is guilty. Now, kind of to do with Jonah and the whole friendship situation, Jeff did say that a lot of the people that are in the vlog squad who just basically blindly listen to what David say. Now, to do with the whole friends situation, does say that a lot of the people like Jonah who stick by David and what he says are people who don't believe in themselves and also don't really have a career outside of the vlog squad. Like Jeff has always had the barbershop. He's always, had the podcast and the whole thing. So I think he didn't rely on David as much as a bunch of them do. But Jonah, as you'll know, relies on David a lot, and I'll get into that in a minute. And then the rest of them pretty much really heavily rely on David to get them through financially. So it makes sense that whatever he says goes, and whatever he says is like... And now he doesn't even vlog anymore, so these people get nothing from being friends with David. Like, he's just on Snapchat now. So if they want to be on Snapchat too, I guess they can, but they'll never make the amount of money that David was making them during the vlog squad days, during the peak of the vlog squad.
Or something worse happens, or someone else. Because even remember when Nick did the motorcycle thing? Were you there? Were you in that group? He did this motorcycle thing, and the motorcycle he literally crashed his head into cement or something like that. And I'm everyone just covered it up and didn't say anything. I'm pretty sure it was Nick. I can't remember. I don't know the names that well, but it's just crazy.
Yeah, that life, that's just not a sustainable lifestyle. Something was bound to happen.
Now there is a certain level of loyalty also because he did give out a lot of free stuff, cars, Lamborghinis, restaurants. Jonah got a restaurant at the end of the whole thing. These people definitely feel like they're in debt to David because he's given them so many financial, little gifts and little Lamborghinis are not little, but it definitely creates a power dynamic where it's well, I give you a Lamborghini. How dare you go be friends with Jeff now? Did Jeff give you a Lamborghini? And it just creates this toxic cycle of them always feel like they're in debt to David unless they literally pay him back a monetary amount of how much these things cost.
What is the status of the lawsuit now? Can you say that or no?
Yeah, he tried to just reject it, dismiss it. Yeah, he tried to get it dismissed twice. The first one was, you said I was doing it for clout. The second one said I was his employee and I can't sue because I worked for him, which is insane.
That should be even more, actually, because
No. Nobody was ever getting paid. The goal was...
Yeah, that's true.
You just all film together and you get exposure, you build your own shit. Or if you just really dick ride and do stupid shit, maybe you'll get a car.
Yeah, right. Oh my God.
I was trying for the car.
Now, Jonah recently went on Joe's podcast and admitted to stalking David Dobrik and being a fan and being creepy. I don't even know how to... Basically, he obsessively watched and analyzed David Dobrik's content and decided that he would be a great fit for the vlog squad. And he was a massive fan, and he was poor, according to him. I don't really know how true that is, but he says he was on about $30 a day. And he basically was trying to put himself in a position where he could join some kind of a YouTube squad. He had the same feelings about Logan Paul. He wanted to kind of be in those vlogs as well, the same vibe of doing things for views and extreme stuff and pranking each other and that whole thing. And he basically went to a meet and greet that David had and tried to befriend him and was I have a plan for when I go there, what I'm going to do and what David is going to see that is going to make him feel like I belong in the vlog squad. And it did work. And he was actually recently on Jason Nash's podcast and he told this whole story a little bit differently. It's almost like he just now decided to like tell the truth. On Jason Nash's podcast, he said that someone else brought him into the friendship and like invited him in because they told David that Jonah was an easy guy to prank. He would be willing to do like dangerous things and get slapped and hit, and like David was, I guess, looking for that kind of guy. And so Dom is the friend they're talking about, but they don't want to name him because Dom's name doesn't ring a good bell anymore. So Dom actually brought him in and said to David like, oh, this is the guy you can hit, and like that's how we're gonna bring him in. So that's the story he told on Jason Nash's podcast. And he said that when he did that meet and greet later on, he apparently didn't realize that it was David. Oh, this story is so just like, you can obviously tell that someone was lying. And apparently like another friend was like, oh my god, isn't that the same guy who you met recently through Dom? And he's like, oh my god, yeah, I guess it is. How convenient. And now on Joe's podcast, he's like, oh yeah, I did that on purpose. I was just looking for an in, whether it be through Dom or through this meet and greet that I went to. Like I was just looking for an in, and the more David would see me, the more he would know and understand that I should be part of the vlog squad. I think this is wild. This is insane. He also would show up to David Dobrik's apartment building and like linger around in the corridors and elevators to see if he could run into David and pull like a little skit and like pull out a little prank to entice David into, I guess, accepting him into the vlog squad. But he never like managed to do anything to like make that happen. And it makes sense why he would stick around David Dobrik for so long, because if he was used to be on $30 a day, which isn't a living wage on your own in LA, and he had these targets that he was like aiming for, like Logan Paul and David Dobrik, and he finally got an in and he went into the vlog squad and he was gifted a restaurant for free and probably paid a bit in whatever, like cars and money in some capacity, and got a bit of his own fame and is set up for life now financially. There is a level of debt and loyalty that he owes to David right now, or he feels like he owes to David, even when he knows that David isn't a good person and he hurt people physically and mentally. He still feels like, well, I owe David. So when he says no, it's no. When he says yes, it's yes. So when he wanted to go see Jeff, but David said no, he was like, well, I guess it's a no. I can't stand up to David because I've literally worked for this for years. I snuck around and I stalked and I creeped my way into money, and now I will not jeopardize that, you know? And like, I can kind of understand it, but not really. Like, kind of. It definitely explains things. It doesn't excuse things though. So that's pretty much the whole drama of David, Jeff, Jonah, Trish, Tanner. It's a whole convoluted, like, everyone's involved now. Just throwing in a little update for the Jeff, Trisha, Paytas stuff. They did post the JeffFM episode with Trish now, because obviously they did the episode of JustTrish Podcast, and now they're doing it on the JeffFM. And there are a few extra tidbits that they added in. Obviously we've already seen most of this with the JustTrish Podcast, but updates. They discussed the Starbucks thing again, and how, I don't know if you guys know the Starbucks thing. After she left the vlog squad, she was in Starbucks. He comes in, gets his drink, sees her, runs off without his drink. And then she talks about it on the Zach Sang show, and then he talks about it in a different podcast. And he's basically like, you screwed over my friend. Like, I'm not even going to make eye contact with you. And then now he's realized in hindsight, he's now realized that she wasn't in the wrong. They were in the wrong. And Jason was in the wrong. She has now, you know, acknowledged that she thought that if he saw her, you know, he would want to talk to her, and by he I mean Jeff, and that they were going to want her back in the vlog squad because she was still at the time like kind of wanted to be friends with them, and that him kind of running out without even acknowledging her existence made her feel like she wasn't part of like the cool kids club. And he was like, yeah, I just realized how that would have made you feel left out of the group, and like we just like isolated you and iced you out. So that was one thing.
We had an infamous run-in at Starbucks.
Yeah, this was about 2 months after the exile.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was April of 2019, I remember.
So I guess the way I feel about everybody in that crew that chose a side against me, you know, that's how you felt towards me. And then what I did just added that much more on top of it, because I purposely, well, you look at it in a different way. You say you punked me out of there, which is a funny narrative too. I think it's funny that like,
because you were always built up as like, Jeff's so scary, he went to prison, he's this bad, and then you just like left because I went into Starbucks.
Well,
I was like,
first
oh my
of all,
God,
what am I going to do to a woman? Like, I'm not going to go.
No, wait, what? I thought you were going to say hi because I thought we were always cool. Like, truly, I thought we were cool.
We were,
Wait,
but also you had to
happened?
break up with my friend, and you were targeting some of my friends at the time online. And we, you know, at the time that group is like, don't get involved in drama, don't even feed into it like we were above it or some
But
shit.
we were at Starbucks and I wasn't filming. And I was excited because I didn't want to be out of the group. I really wanted to be back in that group so bad. I missed it. I was having like PTSD. I was just like, oh man, I want to be back in there. So when I saw you and I thought we were always cool, I was like, oh, this is like, he's going to be like, oh, I saw Trish. She was nice. So I was like, yeah, it's going to be a nice exchange.
Damn.
And then I was like, oh my God.
Now I realize what I did to you. I gave you like I hit you at the cool kids table and like, oh, you can't come in yet, you know, like.
Yeah, very much.
But
and I was
I
like,
didn't
wait,
view
you
it
just
as
joined
that.
this group. You were only like 6 months in. I'm like, why are you big timing me?
I know. Who the I think I was.
Trish also kept praising Jeff and Tana's friendship and how supportive they are of each other and how they promote each other's projects and kind of help each other out, and how she would show up for all the Vlog Squad stuff, but they never ever showed up for anything she did, which is obviously super sad. And it's just like, that's not the kind of friendship group you want to have at all, I hope.
Not one of them came to my tour when I was on tour in 2018.
That's
crazy.
Not even the guy I was dating. I was like, oh my God, how are
No
you not
way,
gonna
for
show up?
real?
Not to one. And I sold out every show because I was in that group. And so everyone was like, David's going to come to Chicago. And he came to like everyone's show and like no one.
That's crazy. That is actually crazy.
And they went to everybody's little thing, every Scotty Shire's shitty show at the amphitheater. I was like, what the and you're not gonna come to mine, and actually like sold out. I was like, that's crazy.
3, Trisha's glad that she escaped the Vlog Squad because of how they made her feel mental health wise, and then, you know, they blamed it all on her and called her crazy, but they would, you know, constantly talk about how much she eats, how much she weighs, and made her just basically mentally not feel great at all.
But aren't you happy that David told Jason not to hang out with you anymore?
Oh my God, could you imagine? Yes, like could you imagine if
Yeah.
That was the most depressing time of my life, actually. Like, it really was. Like, I thought I was, like, so, like, in love, and it was actually, like, so depressing, and I was just constantly being told, like, you're eating too much. Like, how can you eat that fast food? Like, you're so disgusting. And I'm just like, and I'm like, he loves me. It's so stupid.
Damn.
Like, there's so many compilations of him just being like, put the nuggets down. How can you eat that much? I'm trying to get
seen
sick.
them all 6 times.
Like, Jesus Christ. Here, I'm like, we're in love.
And it's like, that's crazy. That's
No, like, they actually hated me, which is actually insane.
It's weird how people get like these characters and then it becomes like a joke that we even like, they would even like do, was it off camera? Or was it just...
off camera, and I would always say, like, can you not make comments about my weight? Like, I was like smaller back then. I'm like, I'm so sensitive about it.
4, they ranked Vlog Squad members, which is a whole segment that you guys can watch. Jonah comes up on screen, and Tana actually admits that Jonah was never nice to her, and he from the start basically didn't like her. And about Jonah didn't want Jeff to do the documentary that he did about the eye accident because it wouldn't make David and Natalie look good.
He was never nice to me.
Oh, was he rude or just not nice?
Just like, I don't know. I just don't feel like he has ever liked me.
Yeah, same.
Like, I would say out of everyone.
I
Like,
love
out of
that they're all
everyone
getting
on
the
this
smoke
list.
right now. This is Judgment Day. You deserve this,
I was
all
gonna
of
say
you.
Brandon was so nice to me, but the opposite, which I didn't know what you said.
Of
course he was. You were.
I've held my tongue all this time. I let everybody else slide.
This
But you
is
know
so
what?
bad.
I love this.
And while Jeff was recovering from the surgery and from the accident, David would keep on messaging him or going through people like Natalie to figure out what's in his documentary, what can we edit out. And there is this very weird picture of them sat together, Jeff and David, watching this documentary, and David's like seeing what he can cut out and what he can make look better.
He didn't even have your back like privately.
Nah, he didn't want me to make the documentary. He was like, that's going to make David look bad.
But David was a part of it.
Well, I let him edit it. And literally he had me change lines in it, you know? I got a funny, like, a video, because, you know, all my people around me that are not, like, creators and, like, influencers, whatever, they're just watching this and so they were like, yo, this is crazy. I just got out of surgery. My eye's bleeding, stitched up, and they're coming over to edit. And they're like, I was asleep, and they're, like, calling my crew. And they're like, so what's going on? Like, with Jeff, we need to see the edit. And they're like, he just got out of surgery. He's like asleep. And like, can we come by and like do the edit?
So scary.
So I had to like get up and go sit in the chair, and I'm just sitting there with my eye bleeding. And David and Natalie are at the computer, and it's just like, oh,
what?
Yeah, and
that's like
so
scary.
So I had some people around that were like, this is so bad. I don't know how Jeff doesn't see it as that it's this bad right now. So he took videos of it, and there's just like these creepy videos of us sitting next to each other editing.
And then they did post some messages that Natalie sent them. And I've always had a bad vibe about Natalie. I personally never liked her. I don't know, she just sounds like not a very nice person, and I think that's coming out now big time. So Natalie said, "Hi, I just saw Jeff's tweet. Don't want to bother him, but how'd the edit turn out? Good, we cut out the screenshots and changed some verbiage. He's in bad shape today though. Okay, cool. Did you guys add the teaser stuff for the positive note at the end?" So we have April 27th. "Hi, talked to Jeff yesterday and don't want to bother him or really anyone too much, but can't help checking in. How's everything looking for him and the next episode?" And they said, "Good, gonna try and have it done and posted by tomorrow." Okay, dope. Don't want to stress anyone out, but would love to see it. Any chance we can come by? And they say, "It's not ready. Tomorrow morning would be better, or later, maybe later tonight." And that's really it. But I can't believe they said, "He's in bad shape today though." And she responded with, "Okay, cool." Okay, cool. Okay, cool. That is like literally awful. It makes her look like the devil. I get why they keep on saying that she's like evil, because I genuinely think she's evil, and she just is so obsessed with David that she can't see how evil she looks. Anyway, if you guys have any opinions about this, let me know. Subscribe to the bell icon for engagement, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.